All right, welcome to the after party. Of course, Juan Carlos Benitez, Dr. McNinch, Dr. Bevacqua, Sabrina and
Yeah, in the TV after party show, we left off and we were talking about the House Ethics investigation, and Juan, you were talking about what happens if you lie, and you were mentioned to the FBI, and so I was just wanting clarification about, so the FBI is investigating this.
Well, they don't talk to me every day, but I would assume that they are.
Okay.
But even if you look, if you lie to an investigator in the House or the Senate, that's also a 5-year prison term.
So you got to be a good liar.
And you got to remember, during the Bush administration, we lost the Deputy Secretary of Interior because he got asked in a hearing if he was sleeping with a lobbyist, and he said, it's none of your business. And he got asked the question again, and he said, no, I'm not, and he was. 5 years in prison.
Well, I think when this first came up, when John Paul Manuel responded to a post on Michael San Nicolas' Facebook page, and that kind of was what started it all. And Michael San Nicolas' response on Facebook was that there was an FBI investigation, right?
Forgot about that.
Right?
Yeah.
He did. He said there was an FBI
He said there's
investigation.
the
That the local
government is conspiring against
Yeah.
him, and that
So I'm wondering if that's also
far
going to be a
vast
part of.
left-wing conspiracy is what it was.
And UFOs are involved too, so you can't forget that.
But
Probes, lots of probing apparently.
yeah. But I think my point is, these are serious allegations with serious consequence, and it's easy to.
Are they? So let's say they get him on, somehow they prove he is allegedly sleeping with a staffer. What's the
Then
penalty
he loses
there?
his job.
No way. Oh wow.
Because you violated
The
that.
rules.
That particular ethic rule, it's a zero tolerance policy. If you're found guilty on it, you're going to be kicked out. That's why you have other members that
Resign.
I see.
resigning.
And that's kind of why they resign, is because they see where it's going and they're saving themselves the embarrassment.
Well, in the case of the Democratic Congresswoman, there were
Right.
photographs running around.
Right.
So at that point, I think she admitted that it was supposedly consensual in nature, and it came across in her divorce proceedings. So
Right.
it's,
I
And
see.
it's going to be hard because it's his first term. It's his first term. And so he hasn't really had a chance to make a lot of friends, a lot of allies.
Especially if
yet.
he's not voting.
Well, that may be part of it. And so, so I wonder if very soon we might hear that he has to sort of lose his committee-ships or something
wonder,
like
yeah.
that, just because I know that's oftentimes something that happens pending an investigation.
but here for me is very interesting. If my expectation is, if he's innocent, and we need to give everybody the credit, the benefit of the doubt,
Right.
he'll immediately say, depose her, depose me, and depose, is it JP?
John Paul Manuel, yeah.
And depose JP, and then based on that, then you figure out what you want to do with us internally, because it's a House investigation, so they'll be talking to Pelosi, right? And then based on that, we'll see their actions moving forward. But for me, those are the first three things that they're gonna look at, and then based on that, we'll find out where it goes. I'm just saying it's not a light deposition. It's not like a deposition here saying like, well, I feel this way today. It has huge consequences. It's per act. So if you repeat the lie 4 times, that's 20 years. So you got to really, really think about it.
Sounds pretty major. Doc, I know you're thinking some things in that head of yours.
I just love politics, and these kinds of shenanigans in politics go hand in hand.
Dirty local politics, I tell you.
It's just not local politics; it's also at the national
Right,
level.
of course.
I think it's just there's this. Henry Kissinger said, "Political power is the greatest aphrodisiac." So there's something to that.
So you think he was set up?
I think that that people can be affected by having a lot of power or being elected to office, and we can never tell.
You know, I I know that we're talking about this, and there's a lot of conversation in it. But my thing that keeps keeping me awake at night is Medicare, Medicaid funding matching legislation that's pending out there. It's looking at supplemental Social Security for the territories. It's all these bills that were in the inkwell.
What
We're
about
in
the
process
cockfighting,
of
man?
this.
Don't forget cockfighting.
Yeah, I'm not a cockfighting fan. Even though I went when I was a little boy, and I learned that I did not like it.
You probably didn't win, that's why.
Yeah.
Once you win, you become a huge
it's
fan.
That's sort of my concern is he's in trouble. He has to deal with that. As a local government, local parties, and local elected officials, we got to deal with the fallout, which is we can't allow these bills to die. We got to push these things through, and get to the finish line with a lot of them. So if I were the governor right now, I would be thinking, who am I going to send over to D.C.
Right.
Right.
to assist Madeline?
can't send
right?
anybody
It can't be just Madeline. In either the lieutenant governor, Tony, someone needs to be going. And I would love to see a bipartisan delegation from
Yeah.
Oh,
our
that'd be cool.
legislature to go down and say,
How do you
hey,
think the congressman would take that, though? Because it seems like anytime we send anyone to D.C. to lobby, with the Republicans, he didn't have a problem with you guys, though.
Yeah,
You
well-
guys are pretty cozy.
well, I don't ask permission, right?
Wait, isn't there going to be a bipartisan summit? Didn't
We requested one. We
Yeah.
hope that that it'll be accepted. In a dream setting, either the speaker or the governor sort of like takes us on the idea of doing it, and we'll wait for a little bit and hope we get
so
a
that
response.
there wasn't a response yet as of yet?
We got the response we really wanted, which is everybody agrees it makes sense to hold off till the end of November. At the end of November, we need to regroup, and we'll see. And if we find out that the federal bill is stuck in committee and they're not going to see it for 6 months,
Then
then
you
let's
move
call
locally.
181 and
Yeah.
do the local bill, and let's move all forward together. If we're together, the governor can call a special session any day.
Right.
And with 15 votes or at least 14 votes together, you can get any bill passed through this legislation. So we can make sure that we take care of the local population, but let's do it in a smart way together. And try to see if we don't double bill ourselves.
Right,
And,
yeah.
and that's my biggest concern.
Mike, let me ask you this. So, Congressman San Nicolas, he's kind of like that back against the wall, just, battles with everybody. Do you think he needs a friend right now? No, I'm serious. He's lacking that local senator. I mean, for crying out loud, even a mayor maybe to kind of stand up and say, hey, Congressman Nicolas, he's all right.
Well, I guess he has lots of friends on Facebook, but I think he does need, I think,
That's kind of where, to me, like this constant fighting, it really...
and so my perspective, though, is that he has a lot of people who want to help him. He has a lot of people who would love to work with him. Most people, even if they disagree with him, they still recognize that he's talented or that he can accomplish important things for the island. But part of that is that a meeting of the minds or working together doesn't mean that one side says, this is what we're going to do, and do what I say. And so at different points in the past, different Congress people have kind of, from Guam, have had that mentality. Like, I'm the federal side, I lead the agenda, you do what I want. And then there's clashes over very important issues because the local side and the federal side for Guam can't agree, and both sides think that they're right. And so I think that the congressman really just needs to take a step back and then think that, if even if, let's say, these people on Guam, even if they don't like me, I still am supposed to represent them. Even if they may have some issues with me and how I'm approaching it, I have to make the case to them that I'm working for them and that I'm doing something good for them. But I can't do that if I'm only talking on Facebook. I can't do that if I'm only talking to people who agree with me. And so he's missing, democracy functions because opposing sides talk to each other, not because people that agree talk to each other. And so a lot of this comes down to that is, do you have skin that's thick enough so that you could sit next to somebody you disagree with and you could still work on something together?
He did that a couple
Case
weeks
in
ago.
point, right? The meeting at
With the governor.
Avalute.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Which I think we saw on both sides. No, we're going to do it my way. Well,
Right.
I mean, and the governor's not to defend the governor, but she was saying, we'll do mine and we'll do yours. And San Nicolas was like, we're only doing mine.
Yeah, they needed to meet in private.
Yeah, you saw
They
the
needed to
cabinet,
meet in
and the
private
cabinet
and
was there.
I don't know,
funny.
maybe do some healing ritual or something like that.
Right.
You know, drum circle or I don't know, Reiki stones or something like that. They
Painting.
need to do something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
painting.
yeah. So
Right.
just to kind of, they're both leaders. You know, they were
Right.
both duly elected by the people.
Sure.
And so it is about something more than yourself and what
Maybe
you want.
it's Congressman San Nicolas doesn't have anyone in his inner circle to tell him these things, you know, to say, hey, get your head out of Facebook, come out into the
You
real
know,
world.
Trump's
you know?
former chief of staff, John Kelly, said,
Right.
if you surround yourself with yes people, you're going to get impeached. If you surround yourself with people who will just say yes to you, then that's probably what's going to happen to you. And you gotta have that ability that even if somebody can still want something similar to you, even if they disagree with you. And so and you know, I think he could eventually learn that. I don't know if I don't see him going in that path.
On this voting thing, so I was looking at his Facebook, and there was, I don't know if it was his or ours or one of those, I was on the voting thing, and someone had criticized, I used the word criticized, not attacked, his voting record, and his comment in response to that person, who I don't even know if this person votes or what, was basically like, oh, armchair quarterbacks are good for complaining. Which I know all the politicians. I can't imagine any elected leader telling
Michael?
Yeah, it was Mike that said it. Yeah.
responded?
I can't imagine anybody telling a voter that to their face, or let alone on Facebook. So,
Yeah, it's not the best way to sort of to put
but hey, maybe that's obviously people like that.
It's not the best way. I mean,
Right.
you could argue social media has changed the way we interact, and
Oh,
even
yeah.
leaders interact with people
Yep.
still. But just because social media is changing the way we interact doesn't mean that we're not supposed to have standards.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to expect a certain level of.
And it's
sort
also
of,
not supposed to replace
behavior.
real interaction, I think.
But let me chime in for a second, and I'll give you the floor. That meeting went bad for everybody,
Oh boy.
and for me, what's interesting is it was in Antelope, right? And it was her house, and she should have had control of the rules. And it seemed like I worked for President Bush, and I worked for two governors, for a governor in Puerto Rico, right? You never put your principal into a room without knowing exactly what's going to go and how it's going to play out. That's what the staff's for. That's where Tony Babauta is for. That's why other folks, Adrian Cruz or what's they just hired Carlo Branch. You say, hey, we're going to meet. We need to get our two principals together. Let's agree that this is how it's going to be scripted and organized.
Well,
and
I got some backstory for you on that when you're ready.
And I have to say, they had this conference. It was really bad. There was no breaks that you could put into the situation or set up, and it reminded me of when she met with the pro-independent groups. There was no rules, nothing established. It was just she was put there. Lasted like 3.5 hours. I give her kudos for staying that long, into a meeting.
I definitely agree with that. That it seems like that for Adelup there is that lack of preparation for many of these things. Because if you're going to
I
go
think they
into
were
a meeting,
prepared. They had all their people. I think they ambushed or they booby trapped him. But you know,
you had to expect the booby trap, though.
Go back to the backstory.
but
he
here-
was walking into
Yeah.
battle.
But here's the thing. If you try to booby trap an individual into a setting like that, you can't expect to look good in the media.
Right, yeah.
Because everybody's going to go like, wait a second, that looks like a setup.
Well, let me tell you the backstory part. So, the backstory is that the governor called one of the talk shows and was like, "Yeah, I want to meet with the congressman. We want to hash out our differences." And then I guess the congressman had took that to mean that she had told the media that they were meeting, and then so he had sent an invite out, but he didn't send it to us. He sent it to selected media that he likes or whatever. But then they turned around and sent it to us. So.
We call those friendly media.
Yeah, really so.
They were friendly.
Right. And so that's how it ended up,
Yeah.
going from what was going to be what Adelup had wanted to be a closed-door meeting turned into a big circus because the congressman invited the media. And then after that, I guess Adelup was like, okay,
No,
Adelup
but-
sent out a press release
Right,
inviting
yeah.
the public.
right.
Yeah, but if that's the case, somebody's job was to put the brakes on that and say, hey, there was a miscommunication.
In
This
in
is a
both
private
offices,
meeting.
in both
Yes.
offices.
And
You
they
have-
had only one job.
That's it.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. Both the staff on both sides, your responsibility is to make your principal look good and not make
But
them
I think
look bad.
with this administration, and I don't know if it's just the Trumpian effect, but I noticed that they enjoy being mean.
You know,
There's this like mean-spiritedness that you know.
You know, I actually think that both the congresswoman and the governor had good intentions when they started that meeting. There was a lot of hesitation. You could see the tension and cut it with a knife, but why else would he have shown up there, and why else would she putting herself in a situation like that? I really thought both of them are trying to figure a way around it, and it just went bad. And it went bad for me because it wasn't prepped by the staff. The staff should have really made sure they put those two individuals in the best setting possible for a win. You know, by George, I'm a Republican. There are two Democrats. They're doing this, and I'm sort of going on the side like, okay, my job's easier now, right?
But at the end of the day,
but
you
for
want,
the
it,
island,
you want it to work.
for the island, I want this to work.
Yeah.
I want this relationship to work. It's not the first time. You know, Underwood was a very strong congressman. He disagreed with sitting governors in Guam all the time. You know, Congressman, as he said, General Blas was also very well regarded and renowned for having very strong positions in opposition to the governors. There's ways you can manage this, but it's sort of surprising when there are two individuals from the same party. You would have expected that more if it was a Democrat and a
Got
Republican.
to stop spreading that lie. We're not in the same party. Ron, what are you going to say, man?
Okay, so you
Let it
mentioned the armchair quarterbacking thing.
Right.
This whole thing about being mean on social media, that's why people watch social media. They watch it for the meanness. They want to see the circus. And so that's why they watch social media. They want to be entertained. It has nothing to do with feelings or making people feel a certain way. It's all about, why does a person watch the website? Well, they want to read stuff like that. And so that's part of their shtick. That's part of the draw, is to kind of be a little bit mean and a little bit snarky.
But I see it spilling out into real life, where like you have, like you said, you have the governor San Nicolas, and it's basically a pissing match until everyone's got urine all over them, and it just turns into like what should have been, hopefully a productive closed-door meeting, and instead turned into a circus where nobody looked good.
Yeah.
And they had only one job.
That's it. Yeah.
But the good thing is, everybody sort of come back into the in agree on the issue. The main issue that drove them there was 1365.
Right.
We're all in agreement. We need to give it a good shot. Then let's figure a way to try to get it now to the finish line.
I just had to laugh because it was like the week before that meeting, and like they just let the guy use Government House for the Veterans Town Hall. You know what I mean? And I know there was some humility because I was privy to the behind-the-scenes stuff, and that they had reached out and they said, "Man, we don't have anywhere to hold this town hall." And, you know, the administration, I mean, what are they going to do? Say no? They said, "Yeah." And then less than a week later, he's back to his stuff again.
And I thought that meeting at Adelup was going to be something positive.
Me
I didn't
too.
think there was going to
Yeah.
be any drama, because I remember I went to go pee, and then I came back, and I was like, "What is going on?" Because the live stream was on. I'm like,
Right.
It's like chaos over there.
Yeah.
Chris,
You shouldn't leave the room anymore.
I
You
know,
should always
like,
stay in the room.
Not when it's those two.
Right.
One of the things that the way that social media sort of melds in a interesting way with partisanship, because partisanship's always been around, right? So we can't say that now people not getting along or disagreeing or being loyal to their side is somehow this new thing, right? But what social media does, though, is it creates a whole new way of creating drama or conflict, which can make it seem like you're working, which can make it seem like you're
Busy.
active, you're busy,
Right.
but you may not actually be very busy, right? Because it may be, because politics nowadays, there's all these big issues that need to be tackled. Would you rather try to work with your colleagues in the legislature and the Congress, elsewhere, to solve those problems, or is it easier to kind of fight, to create drama on social media? And then the people who follow you will defend you, and you only need so many votes to sort of win and
I'm,
get
like,
elected.
tired of it. It's been
and
10
so
months.
It is, and
Crazy.
so that's one of the things, is that you can always use social media to create a lot of activity, the perception, a lot of activity.
Remind me of MMA fights, right? So they'll have people who win fights because they stay busy and they might not be doing any damage, but they're just moving a lot, you know. So,
And people like that, and that's where it fits perfectly with partisanship, right? Is that if you're failing to achieve goals over here, then you give people who follow you targets and reasons why you're doing it over here, and then they get worked up and attack those people and blame them.
So
and
basically, that's what you're saying Michael San Nicolas is doing. He's creating drama on
he's not the
on
only person that
Facebook.
does it.
You know,
He's not the only person that does it, but I can see that it is one of the ways.
is there another Guam politician who has as much Facebook drama?
I don't know about Facebook drama, but I do see a
Other
lot
types of drama.
yeah.
There are other people that are not
WhatsApp drama.
politicians, but in their political realm, and they
really?
do like drama.
Right on.
Okay, let's move on to the Dave Davis appeal
Right.
Yeah.
and the whole.
Can I say one last thing before
Oh,
we
go
go
ahead.
to the David? What's intriguing to me is San Nicolas, for me, is a symptom of a bigger disease inside that Democratic Party. Because why else would you have a governor announce under 10 months
Yeah.
that she's running for re-election?
Because Chris Barnett
Oh
asked.
no! So let me give you the backstory on that. So this is good. We can just seg right into this. So I had heard from a couple cabinet members that they had a fundraiser, but they're like, yeah, it's off the record. So I went and looked all over social media because usually when Lou and Josh have something, everybody's posting. No one posted anything, so I was like, are you sure, man? They were like, yeah. So I spent a week trying to get a picture of the ticket, and I ended up interviewing the governor, and I was like, God, why am I like harassing these people to give me information when I got the governor right here? So I asked her, and I mean, unfortunately, in the media, it's competitive, but I didn't have a chance to get her on her own, so I had to ask her the question with all the other media present.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, did you have a fundraiser? And her reaction was just so classic because she really looked like someone found out something that they weren't supposed to, which is crazy. It's on Guam. You can't have a secret fundraiser. I mean,
Yeah.
they tried, but you can't. And so her answer was, oh, well, fundraiser? Did we have a fundraiser? Yeah, well, we had a fundraiser. It was just hilarious. So I don't think that they meant to announce that they're running for re-election. I think
Right.
we just forced their hand.
I think you're a secret operative for the Lujan Guerrero, Josh Tenorio.
How about that
campaign
re-election
coming
bid?
up, right?
Right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so I don't think they meant to announce this early, but I
Yeah.
mean, you know.
Just gonna happen. So yeah.
The hidden hand of the campaign.
The Queen's hand.
So Dave Davis appeal and the fact that we were too late to file for this extension, I just don't
Yeah.
see how
It's not. It was a concerted effort.
to
This-
just not tell the governor, oh yeah, we missed the deadline, but go ahead and.
No, from what I'm able to piece together is that no one told the governor about I mean, if you believe her, that she said she didn't know about the deadline to file for the extension. What I'm hearing is that no one told her is because she wasn't going to appeal the case. And so, just long story short, this is like really oversimplified version, but people who were involved with this case knew that they weren't going to appeal it for at least a month is what I've been able to put together. So I know that the idea of not appealing this case was shopped around to select groups of people, and I think the groups that were selected were probably selected because of their willingness to agree with the decision. And then what ended up happening was when this kind of got around to other people in these different decolonization movements or whatever, they wanted to find out about it because we were asking, right? We've been asking, like, hey, what are you guys going to do with the Davis case? And it was always like, oh, we're thinking, we don't know. And we're like, God, isn't it like next week?
I got a different opinion a little
Right.
bit.
Well, let me finish. So basically,
We're hearing the truth.
Oh, okay. this-
what happened, what I feel, and what I've been able to piece together is that some of the older folks called for a meeting, and when they were told that, yeah, we're not going to appeal it, they kind of like hit the roof, and they're like, what are you talking about? We're not going to appeal it. And so then I guess the governor's people went back to the governor and said, hey, guess what? Everyone's flipping out that we're not going to appeal it. And Mike Phillips was the one that was saying that he thinks, we should fight it. And so talking to Mike never had a conversation with the governor where he was like, I want to take this case.
Until-
Someone had just told her that, hey, yeah, Mike Phillips was talking smack. And this is where I get back to the meanness. And with Senator Therese Terlai, she also never asked to be part of this case. Now, I think there was an effort to impress upon the governor that they wanted to appeal it. And so I guess after that meeting where the elders found out they were going to appeal it, someone went back to the governor and said, yeah, they're all pissed. We better do something about this. So she was like, okay, I guess we're going to appeal it. And guess what? Mike Phillips and Teresa Lahi, you guys are taking the case. So it was kind of news to them. And then
It was news that the extension
the
had
extension of deadline had
expired.
passed. Yeah. But again, I'm getting that because the people who were involved with the case had, I guess, I don't know if it came from the governor herself that, they weren't going to appeal it. So that's why the deadline was allowed to pass.
Is this what you kind of heard?
Well, I just want to say one quick thing that really has something to do with the case, but nothing to do with the case. The biggest mistake Guam ever made was to separate the Attorney General from the governor. The Attorney General should be the governor's legal advisor. As soon as the Davis case came out, she should have gotten a full profile assessment on here's your options, here's your deal. Because right now we have
here's your deadline.
Right.
Yeah. Hey.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
yeah, here's your deadline.
Yeah, and so just from a standpoint of pure legal operations for a government, maybe we can have an elected prosecutor or something like that, but the Attorney General should be, you said the Queen's right hand or whatever.
Right,
There
right.
should be a direct link between the Attorney General and the governor on all matters like this, particularly political matters.
Well, it appeared though
Yeah.
that those conversations did
Now,
take
I'm talking
place.
about there has to be I'm the boss, you work for me.
That's kind of why
I
we
see,
have an
I
elected
see.
AG, though, is that they're going back to, I guess, Carl's time, as it was like, they were just the hand of the king.
Nah, it has to, yeah,
But that's-
But
exactly.
I do,
That's
because
how
they're
it's
the
supposed to
government's
be.
chief legal officer.
Right.
I see your argument.
But that's the role. I completely agree with you. You can have a solicitor general. You can have or a ombudsman that takes care to monitor the government, and we know we have a public auditor that is monitoring on the other side now, who's a former justice, but it hampers a local government not to have the attorney general, because if you have a bad relationship with your attorney general, then you don't know anything. And he's the one that's making, or she is the one that's going to be making most of the decisions of where the appeals of the government cases are going.
And I think that's what
Which
kind of
in
led
effect
to,
are policy.
Yeah.
These are
Oh,
policy
huge.
government choice items. And it should be the governor and working in tandem.
Now,
But what do you do when we have this situation where, and we only know this because it was basically the gist of the governor's address, where you have her attorney general and then presumably the lawyer who handled the case, Julian Uggan, telling her that, yeah, if we pursue this, remember, this could lead to a tomorrow apocalypse. And so, I mean, the governor basically was like, yeah, I don't agree, I want to move forward.
but which is her prerogative as
Yeah,
governor.
it is, yeah.
And if the attorney general doesn't want to pursue it,
But
she
now
can
I think
contract their own attorney.
what we had was they were just like, oh yeah, you're not going to listen to us? Well, good luck getting anything from us. I mean, I asked Mike Phillips.
Here we are though today. That extension was filed today by Mike Phillips,
Tomorrow Standard Time.
right, by USPS. But I mean, what do you think the likelihood that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to say? Oh, okay, yeah, you missed the deadline. That's okay. We're still gonna, entertain this.
So
Too little,
let's
too
play.
late.
So let's play devil's advocate.
Oh,
So
right.
Let's assume they don't give him the extension.
Oh, that's devil's advocate? I
He's
thought it would be that they would give him
I
an
don't know,
extension.
but I'm going to go by parts. So if they don't give him the extension, we have a couple days before he needs to file the
No,
case.
today was the deadline.
Yeah,
I thought to
it's
actually
filed.
file the
Yeah.
appeal,
I have it if
So
you want to read it.
he missed
and then 10 days
extension.
before that was for the
yeah, he
extension.
already missed the extension.
Right.
Right.
So
So
he
now he
could have
has to
filed
argue
the appeal
extraordinary
today,
circumstances, yeah.
but he filed for an extension
To file the appeal today.
Couldn't they
Because
he
appoint
could
an
get it at the
all-nighter and
extension
just put in an
deadline.
appeal?
So
Right.
Crammed.
so
Right?
so technically
Pack of
he's-
no-dos and a typewriter.
Technically, he's trying to force the hand of the Supreme Court to say, if you want to look good, now you have no choice but to grant me the extension.
Yeah, right.
Because if not, these people will feel that they didn't get their case heard by you. That's a very risky move. I'm intrigued by it. Here's the thing. I think that appealing this case is a huge mistake. It opens up a Pandora's box that we don't want to open.
The hard no.
If they decide to rule on Davis on the 14th and 15th Amendment, the implications on most of the stuff that goes on Guam is huge. And
Guys, think
why-
positive. We could win.
why,
Such pessimists, I tell you.
I'm risk averse, so I tend to go and I look at that play of hands, particularly when I just seen a case in Puerto Rico when they declare constitutional the creation of the Promesa board that impacts us. We didn't even had a say in it. And then they followed that with a case that they just heard in the Supreme Court that I've been sending the oral arguments to everybody, where it appears, if I count my votes correctly, the Supreme Court is about to rule that even though nobody in the government of Puerto Rico elected those individuals, no one in the government of Puerto Rico was involved in the structure of changing, the Supreme Court is going to rule that and completely ignoring the Constitution of Puerto Rico. They said that the federal government, Congress still retains the ability to mold that government into an extra constitutional system, and they're not federal officials. That is concerning. That Supreme Court, I don't want to take him to see my case on Davis, because they might say, look, these territories keep coming up here with all these arguments. We need to shut this down right now, and we're going to do it in a very
That's what I
clear
meant by
manner.
tomorrow apocalypse.
Yeah,
so
this was something that was being
And this was the
discussed.
argument that they
This was
used to tell everyone why they
it
weren't
was
going to
being
appeal.
discussed in sort of the Commission on Decolonization and a little bit in Adelup about sort of that issue. And I know that Julia Nuggan was cautious about sort of going to the Supreme Court because, they only take a fraction of the
Yeah.
cases, but still.
They might be more
would
ready
they-
to take ours, though. They'd
Would
be
they
like, yeah,
use
ooh.
that? Because the insular cases have to be addressed. It's beyond time to address them. But how will the Supreme Court address them?
A conservative court.
And that's the type of thing, though, is that it could have far-reaching implications in the Promesa sort of case will affect Guam, and then the Supreme Court deciding the Davis case could affect everything
Hawaii
from
and-
Native
right.
Hawaiians
Yeah.
to tribal rights to other territories.
Sure.
And so I know that was some of the discussions that were going on in the background, although I do recognize that it feels like you're giving up if you don't continue it on. And
One
I
of my
know
friends told me today, that's such a man's point of view. Oh, even if you're getting your butt kicked, you go into the last round and you just flail away, and then we have to finish this.
That's why it would have been good to use this time between the affirmation of the appeal to today to basically have that conversation.
Sure, publicly.
Because if you're gonna, if you're gonna put it out there that we're not gonna continue this or we are gonna continue this, you want people
And
educated
I
about
think the
sort of
governor
what
dropped
stakes are.
whoever dropped the ball. I mean, we just had 2,000 people march for this, and you would think that it would be a top of mind. And they should have discussed it publicly instead of taking it around in whatever way they did. The governor, I think, had mentioned something about a listening tour for this case. That's something that I feel like a lot of people should have been involved with, and then maybe we would have reached that watershed moment at a time where we still could have filed for an extension. Anyway, guys, we got to wrap up. So,
Final?
But I think the best thing we get is a certiorari denied, or in this case, not even that. It's going to be extension denied. So it takes us out of that ballpark right now altogether.
I think they just could have appealed it. I don't think the appeal was all that hard.
To prepare the last minute appeal.
there's a
Well, he
little bit
didn't
of
even
cramming.
know if he was appointed or not.
Yeah.
But then it became you didn't need
And
one.
that's what's kind of funny too, is that you have this situation where you had the governor's lawyer saying, no, don't appeal it, it's super risky. And then she's like, okay, never mind, I am going to appeal it. This is my lawyer. And they're basically like, well, he ain't getting nothing from us. Or
Yeah, but I'll tell you, Mike Phillips is a good attorney. So I no disrespect. If he thinks he can come with the argument and he can
I don't know if he
thread
thought-
that needle.
necessarily thought that, but when I asked him, I said, well, would you have still taken the case if you had known that the extension of file for the deadline had passed? And he said, Chris, yeah, because it's not about the battle, it's about the cause. And you can't walk away from the cause. Okay. Well, on that note, I guess that's it, pants it.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you to Dr. Mike, Dr. Ron, of course, Juan Carlos for Sabrina and Chris. This has been the after party.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.